So we kick off day one with a look at the macro environment around us. How do we make sense of the world we are now operating in? Well, I'm delighted to introduce Paul Martin, who hopefully is going to give us a very good idea. An experienced international business professional with over 15 years experience in advisory, research and analytics, focused on the retail and consumer goods sectors. Paul is going to dissect the impact of COVID-19 on retail and explore the long-term impact of the crisis, its effect on strategy, and the implications for the industry as the most important private sector employer in the UK.
Hello everybody, and thank you very much to the Retail Trust for asking me to speak to you today and share my views on the outlook of the UK retail market. It is fair to say that over the last 6 months, we have seen some fundamental changes occurring within the UK retail sector. I'd like to show you some data regarding the sales performance in August, but also look at the last couple of months. And it is fair to say, over June, July, and August 2020, we have seen a resurgence in retail sales, which has been a very, very positive piece of news, especially if I look back to the performance in March, April and May, where due to the national lockdown, we had experienced a very significant decline. In total, over the last 3 months, UK retail has grown by approximately 3.5%. But, and it is really important to showcase this point, we are still seeing a game of two sides of the coin. Food and categories related to the home have experienced a significantly better performance over the last 6 months, in contrast to categories connected to fashion, to footwear, to beauty, where sadly we have seen a significant decline, as you can see in the data in front of you. The other key point to highlight is the acceleration of online. This is unsurprisingly, and many of you would have seen the data over recent months, that online has grown fundamentally and is the fastest growing channel in UK retail today. You would have seen, though, a slight slowdown in that performance in contrast to the April and May numbers, where many individuals were utilising the online channel for their purchases. And we are still standing, though, at over 40% penetration within the non-food channel. And if I look at online in its entirety for the UK retail economy, we are today close to 30% penetration. That is a 50% growth ratio in contrast to pre-COVID levels, where the penetration stood at 20%. The big question, though, of course, is how will the UK retail economy perform going forward? As we know, retailing in the UK is one of the most important segments of our economy, generating £395 billion contribution to UK GDP every year. And if I look at the data in front of you, 2020 will see a decline. Our latest forecast shows that decline will be approximately 1.2%. But if I would have shown you this data earlier in the year, if you would have seen this slide in April, that decline would have been significantly worse. At that point in time, we were expecting 25 billion to 30 billion pounds of sales decline, which would have equated to a 5 to 7% decline, which of course would have been very bad news for the sector. We are running this forecast on a monthly basis, and in that context, it is very important to say we are experiencing a very fluid situation. The numbers we will rerun in the next couple of days, including our September outlook, will very, very likely make that picture slightly less favourable, as we are experiencing more regional lockdown measures, and of course we are ramping up for the final quarter, the golden quarter, which many of you know is so critical for the retail sector. And we are expecting Christmas to be slightly slower than in previous years, but I am absolutely hopeful that the British consumer will continue to treat themselves for the festive season 2020. If I look at our outlook for 2021, we are more positive about 2021, and we do believe the UK retail economy will start growing again. And as you can see from the data in front of you, we're expecting the potential of £20 billion to be added to that number of £395 billion I mentioned before. But again, I do need to provide the caveat that this is a very fluid situation, and if we do experience a worsening of the situation in relationship to virus cases and an increased level of lockdowns on a local or even on a national level, these figures could sadly change quite quickly. And as I highlighted a moment ago, we are still seeing this split between food and home-related categories, where we do believe these categories will continue to prosper, in contrast to specifically fashion and some of the other non-food categories, where our forecast outlines it will take until the end of 2021 or even early 2022 to recover to pre-COVID sales levels. What I would also like to showcase is what do we believe are the key consumption drivers? What is helping consumers to make a decision to loosen their purse strings? And there are 6 key drivers from our perspective, and these drivers are not new, although COVID has put a slightly different lens on these drivers. The most important driver to showcase is value. We know we are unfortunately heading for economically very difficult times, therefore value, and specifically the cheapest price, is going to be fundamental for many consumers. If I looked at this driver in the past, it was split between 50% the cheapest price and 50% value for money. That has increasingly pivoted towards the cheapest price. The next key driver is convenience. Of course, online is the utmost form of convenience, but what we're also seeing, and this is more positive news, a real resurgence of local high streets in rural areas and in suburbia. With many consumers not commuting to inner cities, convenience stores, independents on local high streets have fared better than many of their compatriots within inner cities, which is good news. The third point I'd like to highlight is experience. And for many years, experience was hailed as that defensive mechanism against the online channel. Putting a coffee bar in the middle of your store, though, is not experience and also not the answer. Our consumer research, and we have quite recently polled over 15,000 consumers across 12 different countries, what this research shows us that experience is pivoting towards ease. Make it easy for the consumer, both in the physical environment and from an online perspective. Choice is the 4th key criteria. Pre-COVID, we have seen organizations with unlimited choice, those platform ecosystems that have millions of SKUs, prosper, and we've also seen the discount channel with very limited ranges also succeed. Organizations playing in the middle have found it much tougher, and consumers continuously tell us that choice can be confusing. And in this context, we do believe in a post-COVID lockdown world, there will be significant stock optimization moves. And we believe 30% of ranges will be taken out over the next couple of years. Do you really need 100 different types of ketchup on your shelf, or will 10 be sufficient going forward? The next point I'd like to highlight is purpose. And purpose will become increasingly important for the consumer going forward. Can you, as an organization, really showcase that you have a purpose, that you play your role in the local communities you serve. If you don't, consumers will increasingly vote with their feet and will not open their wallets to spend with you. And the final point, the final consumption driver, is privacy and safety. We've spoken about the acceleration of online. Sadly, this has also led to an acceleration of cybercrime. And in that context, consumers want to know that you are keeping their data safe. They want to know they can trust you with their information. And if you are a trustworthy partner and can provide increased levels of convenience, consumers will provide you with more of their personal information. But it's not only digital safety, digital privacy. We are also seeing physical safety. If, as a consumer, I'm interacting in your stores, I want to know I am safe. I want to know that your staff are safe. That is really, really important in that context. And we are, over the course of this event, speaking about well-being, and physical well-being is really, really important in this context. And we have seen many retail colleagues up and down the land really put their lives on the front line serving customers. So that is a really important driver. And that leads me to, well, what should the key themes be, the 4 key trends that retail leadership teams should have at the top of their agenda in these somewhat challenging times? The first point I would like to highlight is business model and partnerships. Over the last 10 years, retail is increasingly changing. Pre the last 10 years, I probably could have taken a time capsule and gone back to the streets of ancient Rome, and I would have recognized very similar types of retail as I would have seen in the last 20 years. But since online has accelerated to the degree it has, we are seeing a larger share being taken by the online channel, and more disruptive channels will come to the forefront. We haven't even seen the real impact of social commerce or voice commerce in a market like the UK yet. Therefore, organizations are going to have to drastically rethink their business models. Historically, retail was all about you source great product, you ship product, and then you sell product. And if you're good at that, you open new stores. Sadly, it is not as easy as that as it used to be. And in that context, we know retail is a low-margin industry, and therefore transitioning to the new reality is not going to be as easy as it will be for other industries. And it's going to become fundamentally important to partner with other organizations to make that transition. And COVID has accelerated the need to make that transition. And I would even argue, in some cases, you are going to have to think about, in inverted commas, dancing with the devil, partnering with organizations you may have considered as competitors in the past. If I take a look at the e-commerce business model in the UK, it is probably worldwide one of the most customer-friendly business models. We take away all of the hard and heavy lifting from the consumer. We deliver to their homes. We take the products back, and we, in many cases, don't even charge for this extra service. Well, it's very customer friendly, but in many cases, it is not profitable. And therefore, we're going to have to rethink how we do e-commerce in the future. That leads me very nicely to the next key theme leaders should be working on: cost of doing business. UK retail profitability has declined significantly over the last 10 years. Our research shows us in 2010, the median profitability of UK retail stood at 6%. In 2020, that profitability is less than 1%. And that is highly connected with the business model point I just mentioned. Therefore, changing your business model, but at the same time, also looking at your costs is going to be really, really important. And increasingly, retail businesses are competing against technology, data, logistic and supply chain businesses who have a very different cost base, and therefore looking at this is becoming really fundamental. And this will happen across a number of key areas. Real estate is a key point. We have too much physical space in UK retailing, and we are very likely to see a decline of that space by about 25% in the next years. That doesn't mean the store is not important, and it also doesn't mean we will not open new stores, but we have too many stores in various categories in the wrong place, and that will change. I already mentioned range optimization. We will need to reduce our ranges specifically in the physical space to enhance our working capital positions. We're also going to have to think about how do we really bring our colleagues to the forefront? How do we really enable our colleagues to deliver great customer service whilst other functions we automate? If I think of some of the health and safety concerns within the supply chain, etc., we're going to have to become much smarter. But most importantly, we're also going to have to undertake a pivot of large parts of our investment spending going into new stores or refurbishing stores and pivot that to technology. I quite recently shared the stage with the CIO of one of the world's largest retailers, and he highlighted they spend 1.5% of their global turnover on technology versus the platform businesses who they are competing with, in many cases spending 20% of their revenue on technology. That will require a change in thinking. The next trend I would like to highlight, and I've touched on this, is around purpose. Purpose is so important, and I mentioned customers will vote with their feet if you do not share a similar agenda, similar values to them. But that also has to be tangible. We've seen many organizations make bold statements about carbon neutral by certain dates, which of course are important statements to make, but make it tangible for your local consumers. Make it understandable what you're doing in the local community to drive that purpose and to enhance your reputation. And finally, I would like to highlight the customer. It has never been as important as today to truly understand who she and he is you are interacting with. For decades, if not millennia, it has been you had to have great products and you had to have great locations. Guess what? You still need to have great products and great locations, but you also need to know who your consumers are. Organizations that have been able to personalize their messaging, personalize their offers have fared significantly better, and in that context, investment is going to have to be made in these areas going forward. And then, of course, we ask the question, the so what? Well, what will the retail landscape look like in the future? And here, I'm being slightly provocative, and I would say that in the next 10 years, increasingly the word retail will become obsolete and we will move to what I call consumer commerce. The reason I call this new environment consumer commerce is you will be competing against data, logistics, supply chain organizations who will all be selling products and services to the consumer and in many cases will not have a background in physical stores. And we believe there will be 7 types of businesses that will succeed going forward. And if you're not one of these type of businesses, you will find it increasingly difficult to, in some cases, even survive on the retail planet going forward. The first group I would like to highlight are the large platform ecosystems. Either businesses that go direct to consumer with their platform marketplaces or increasingly platform as a service businesses that are selling their back office capabilities to other retailers to really drive that platform ecosystem. The second group of successful businesses will be those large multinational retailers that are increasingly transitioning from the legacy bricks and mortar business model to become a platform ecosystem. And that is more than just being an omni-channel retailer. The third group are the domestic heroes. We have many of these large domestic players in the UK, in France, in Germany, but these businesses are going to have to rethink how they operate. They're going to have to form partnerships. How can they buy across borders together? How can they develop talent and capabilities together? That is going to become a key mechanism to be able to compete against Group 1 and 2. The fourth group are the discounters. They are more profitable, more efficient from the way they are set up as organizations, but they're going to have to crack the online conundrum as more and more consumers will want to interact with them through the online channel. The fifth group are brands that will go direct to consumer. We're already seeing more and more of this. They're cutting out the retail channel. They're building direct to consumer relationships. And in many cases, they're using platform as a service providers from Group 1 to do that. The sixth group will be category specialists, in many cases with 2% or less market share, who are experts in that specific category they operate in. They really understand the products, they really understand the consumers and provide great service. And I also believe they will succeed in the future. And the seventh group are the independents and the mutuals. They really deliver the purpose promise. They're connected with their local communities and they really have that prominence on local high streets. And everything we have seen over the last months really gives them the opportunity to succeed in the future. Thank you very much for listening. Have a good day.